Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Assembly Judiciary for the 83rd session, our first day here. Glad to see you all back. Glad to see everyone is here and on time. As you know, we start promptly at 8 a.m. every morning, so welcome, everyone. With that, the first thing that we will begin with is we will have Mr. Werner please call the roll.
Assembly members Cole. Here. Dahlia. Here. Gonzalez. Here. Gray. Here. Hanson. Here. Hardy. LaRue Hatch. Here. Marzola. Present. Moore. Here. Nadeem. Here. Ortlicker. Roth. Here. Urick. Here. Chair Miller.
Here. And with that, please mark members here when they arrive. Also, I'd like to welcome everyone, doesn't seem to be anyone, but if anyone arrives there in Las Vegas, in our new rooms down there, as well as here in Carson City, anyone watching, viewing online as well. Today, as you know, we usually start off our sessions with a number of presentations, so we will begin with a number of presentations this week from different state agencies. We also today have introductions of staff and members, and of course, committee staff and Department of Corrections will be doing a presentation. Before we get into it, I would like to address a few housekeeping issues. One, and I already heard one computer being silenced, but please make sure that all of our electronic devices, all the bells and whistles are turned off so that not to be disruptive to anyone throughout the process. Also, again, we start promptly at 8 a.m. Members, I know there's been different stories floating around, but please keep in mind we are agendized for 8 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday, unless otherwise noted. As you know, agenda items may be taken out of order. Sometimes there's some logistical issues that just have to be addressed. So on the agenda, orders may be taken out of order. Sometimes two or more agenda items may be combined. And we will always notify you as much ahead of time as when we're making those changes on the agenda. Again, you know that sometimes you may be requested to submit more materials or more details or more information about a certain topic. And when that happens, we ask that you submit it to committee staff so that way it can be shared out to all members. If you wish to testify, please sign in to the table at the front. Again, we know that there are times where sometimes people come in the audience and they weren't planning to testify, but were inspired to testify throughout, hearing the hearing. So that's not a hard, fast rule. You are still more than welcome to testify, even if you didn't sign in. It just helps us with correspondence later, and it also helps us to have a better idea of how much time we'll need to proceed throughout the hearings. When you do testify, especially those before presenting a bill or presenting an informational, we ask that everyone state their name, spell their name clearly for the record so that we have that accurate, as well as tell us any organization or group that you're from or represent. If you have handouts, we ask that you provide 20 copies to the committee secretary prior to your testimony. In addition, electronic copies of exhibits, presentations, and amendments should be submitted to the committee manager no later, and this is a bit of a change, than 24 hours before the scheduled meeting. So before, we always did, like last session, it was noon the day before, but this year we're trying to be consistent, so we're 24 hours before the scheduled hearing. So that would mean if you were presenting tomorrow, your presentation materials should have been submitted by 8 a.m. today. You also know that this is a standard that I strongly uphold for our committee staff. They have a lot to do. There's a lot that goes into uploading and presenting these materials, as well as ensuring that there's no copyright infringements. So again, if you have something you need presented, please make sure it's in before 8 a.m. that day prior. With that, if there are some copyright infringements that are recognized, obviously committee staff will reach out to you and let you know that as well. Of course, committee information will be available on Nellis, which can be accessed through the legislature's website. You may also watch the meetings not only on Nellis, but also on the YouTube channel. With that, I just want to remind folks that the Senate has one station on YouTube and the Assembly has another one. So please make sure you're watching the correct one. We will also always have public comment at the beginning and the end of each meeting. With that, we ask that public comment and testimonies are kept to 2 minutes so that we're able to ensure that we are, again, moving through these meetings in a swift manner. If there are times when you have more than 2 minutes of testimony to say, we will just ask you to submit the rest in writing. You can always submit your testimonies on a bill before, during, or even after a hearing. And of course, during testimony, speakers are asked to not keep repeating the same sentiment that was already addressed. One of the luxuries we now have in the past few sessions is we are able to, the public is able to testify on the phones. So again, testimony for everyone in Nevada listening, you don't have to physically be here in Carson City. You could go to our site in Las Vegas and testify, or you may call on the phone and testify. Of course, more information about public comment and all of the bills on the agenda will be available on the agenda, including the telephone numbers, the meeting ID, and the instructions for using the telephone to testify. Presenters, we always ask that you keep your presentation, this is either for a presentation or a bill hearing, to 15, 20 minutes max. This isn't just for timing, but also to know, after 20 minutes, attention spans start to wean. So this is for your benefit to ensure that people are still sharp and paying attention to what you're saying. With that, you will often see that members are on the dais. They are using multiple forms of electronics. This is not in any way disrespect or not paying attention. This is just the way that we are communicating, and members are researching and looking up things and referring back to the bills and so on. So please don't take that as a sign of disrespect. Of course, here in committee, we always hold ourselves to a standard of mutual respect and courtesy. And so that will be expected of everyone in the room, including anyone presenting, including anyone testifying. Of course, we're also a room where we know that disagreement and discourse is part of the process, but we do that in a very respectful, courteous manner, in a professional manner. With that, I will move on to our first agenda item before we go further into any more policies or housekeeping. But with that, I would like to take a moment and first introduce members of the committee and our committee staff. As always, we know that in the Assembly, we have 2-year terms, so we often see a lot of transition in our House and often on committees. So you may see some new faces. You'll also see some faces of people that have been here for multiple sessions in Assembly Judiciary. So with that, I will ask members if you will briefly introduce yourself. Please tell us, obviously, your name, the district you represent, the year you were first elected, so for some, that will be 2024, and how many sessions you have served on Assembly Judiciary. With that, I would like to start with Vice Chair Marzola. I swear we don't believe you, but okay, thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. I am Assemblywoman Elaine Marzola. This is my 3rd term. I have been in Judiciary, happily to do so, because I do love this committee. All 3 sessions that I have served, a lot happens in this committee. A lot of amazing legislation comes out of here, and I am proud to serve next to Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Why don't we just move on down the line to
Good morning, everybody. Assemblywoman Hanson. I was first elected in 2018, so my first term was 2019. This will be my fourth session and my fourth time being on Judiciary, which is a very important committee to me, and so I'm privileged and honored to be able to serve on it. My district is District 32. I have a really wonderful district that's an urban and rural blend. I have 6 counties. That means I have 6 DAs. I have 6 public defenders. So I have a large chunk of Washoe, all of Pershing, all of Lander, all of Humboldt, a little bit of Eureka County, and a western slice of Elko County. And I think I did it all. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. My name is Toby Urich. I have the privilege of representing Nevada's Assembly District 19, which is down in Clark County, and it is kind of an unusual district in that I represent the urban part of my district is South Henderson, and then I wrap around the lake, represent a lot of snakes and scorpions and fish, and then I work my way into northeastern Clark County to the rural part of my district, which includes Moapa Valley and Logandale and Mesquite. So it's a real diverse district, and I look forward to representing those folks again here on Judiciary. This is my second term. I was first elected in 22. Both sessions I now have the privilege of serving on Judiciary, and I look forward to working with everybody on this committee and you, Chair. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Cole, and this is my first time, my first session. I was elected in 2024. Very happy to be here. Thank you very much, Tara, for giving us a chance to introduce ourselves. So my district is District 4. It is in Las Vegas, the far northwest corner. What else do I need to tell you? First session. So yeah, anyway, thank you.
Assemblymember Joe Dahlia, representing Assembly District 29 in Henderson. I was just elected in 2024 along with my colleagues, so this will be my first time in Judiciary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Hanadi Nadeem, and I represent District 34. This is my first year. I was elected in 2024. Thank you.
Do I really need a mic? Good morning, everyone. My name is Cecilia Gonzalez, and I represent Assembly District 16. It used to be Central Vegas, but we've grown so much. I'm at the airport area, Sunset Park, and the district is going up to the Spring Valley area too. So I cover a wide range of places, and this will be my second time serving on Judiciary, and I'm excited to be back. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Assemblymember Cynthia Moore. I represent Assembly District 11, which is a lot of East Las Vegas, a little bit of North Las Vegas, Fremont Street. I was elected in 2024, and this is my first session in Judiciary. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, and I apologize about the phone interruption. Ken Gray, Assembly District 39, all of Douglas County and the Central Lyon County corridor. It's my second session on Judiciary. It's actually my most fun and favorite committee. And everybody wants to know what happened to the arm. Just a little leftover injury from the battle last session.
Good morning, Erica Roth. I represent Assembly District 24. I was also elected in 24, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to serve on this committee. And my colleague is being very coy. He knows that this was a fight we had earlier today. So.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. I'm Assemblywoman Melissa Hardy. I represent Assembly District 22, which covers areas of Henderson, basically the Green Valley Ranch area out towards Cadence and original Henderson. I was first elected in 2018, so this is my fourth session. I really love Judiciary. This is my third session being on Judiciary. It is my favorite committee. We cover a lot of topics in here, and I've really learned a lot, and so I'm just grateful to be on this committee again. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I am Assemblymember Selena LaRue Hatch. I represent Assembly District 25, which is basically Western Reno. I was first elected in 2022, and this is my second session on Judiciary. And this is my favorite group of people to start every 8 a.m. with. And so I'm very, very happy to be back and enjoying those 8 a.m.s with all of you again. Thank you.
David Ornitlicker, Assembly District 20, which is southeast side of Las Vegas, just east of the UNLV campus. I was first elected in 2020, and so my third term and also my third term on Judiciary, and delighted to be back.
Thank you, everyone. And I am Brittany Miller, representing Assembly District 5, which is the Summerlin Lakes area down in Las Vegas, the western area of Las Vegas. This is my 5th term. And for those that are keeping track, there are only 5 of us in the Assembly that are on our 5th term. That would be Speaker, Majority Floor Leader Howdiggy, and of course, Chair of Ways and Means, Danielle Monroe Moreno. So we're the only ones, the only 5th timers in the building, in the Assembly. So that, yeah, we've been around a while. And this is my 4th time on Judiciary. I only had a 1-term sabbatical to go on Ways and Means, and then came back to chair. So this is my 2nd year chairing Judiciary. So with that, I would like to introduce our committee staff. Often here in the legislature, what people don't realize is, I mean, I know there's a lot of correlations often people make between politics and Hollywood, but it's often true. When you're watching a show or watching a movie, you see a number of actors on stage, but people don't realize that there may be 200 people behind the scenes to get those 4 or 5 people in that scene on camera. And so it's often very much the same way with us. You may see so many folks on the dais or on the floor, but there's also a team of a few hundred people behind us helping us to get to that point. And so for those people you may never see, or those people you always see, know that they are definitely part of the team and what keeps the machine running. So with that, I would first like to introduce, many are in the room today, Committee Secretary Tracy Dory. If you could stand up or wave, or at least let people know who don't know who you are. This is her 4th session. She is a native Nevadan, born in Elko. Ms. Dory worked for the state of Nevada for 30 years. 14 of them in the Office of the Attorney General, with 16 years with the Department of Corrections. She retired in 2017 and enjoys traveling, gardening, and raising chickens. Do you have eggs? Okay. Next is Committee Secretary Karen Werner. You are back here, yes. So glad to have you back this session. Ms. Werner lives in Dayton with Mike, her husband, of 44 years. Although she is way too young, she actually has 4 children and 8 grandchildren, and this is the way too young part, 5 great-grandchildren. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Nevada, Reno in psychology, and retired from state service prior to coming to work for the Assembly 9 sessions ago, all joyfully for the Judiciary Committee. We also have committee manager, also in the back, Aaron Klatt. This is Mr. Klatt's 2nd session and first as committee manager. Did everyone get to see him? Did you get? Okay. He is a native Nevadan, also born in Reno, where he still lives today with his wife, Taylor. His new wife, Taylor. He is also a newlywed, so congratulations. Mr. Klatt has an associate's degree in science from Truckee Meadows Community College, and outside of the legislature, he, also recent and new, is a correctional officer at Northern Nevada Correctional Center. He enjoys golfing, rock climbing, and movies. Also a committee secretary, we have Lola Works. This is Ms. Works. There. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Works. This is Ms. Works' first session with the Nevada Legislature. She is a proud graduate of UNR, where she graduated magna cum laude with her BA in English Literature and minor in journalism. She is excited to have the opportunity to learn about the legislative process firsthand. We also have Committee Secretary Nicholas Fisher. This is Mr. Fisher's first session as a committee secretary. He was born in Reno and grew up in Carson City. In 2023, we have a lot of folks having a lot of new experiences in their life. In 2023, he received a BA in history from Montana State University and plans to attend law school in the fall. Outside of work, Mr. Fisher is an avid skier, golfer, and traveler. Next, we have Committee Secretary Claudia Perrott. Did I say that correct? Perrott. Okay. So everyone has that down, Perrott. This is Ms. Perot's first session, and she is excited to learn about the legislative process. She also grew up in Carson City and recently moved back from Henderson. She received her BS in health science from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. She has one daughter and spends her free time with her daughter playing volleyball, soccer, basketball, walking, hiking, and visiting with family. She is looking forward to the summer in Lake Tahoe. We also have Ms. Ashley Torres, who is a committee assistant. There you are. She left California 10 years ago due to the ridiculous, we shouldn't really get political here, but the ridiculous in and out lines. And they can be extremely long if you've seen them before. We have some in and outs in southern Nevada that are better than others, but I do appreciate your pain. And so decided to move here to Carson City, where you see the line moves quite swiftly, pretty much, except for really late at night. She has 2 kids, and in her free time, they enjoy visiting Tahoe, snowy or not, for hiking, kayaking, and exploring crystal shops all over Nevada. Outside of the legislature, she has worked at the Department of Indigent Defense. We are also fortunate to have Maria Velasquez, Research Policy Analyst in the Research Division. She will be assisting our committee policy analyst with the committee, and this is her second session with the division. Are you here with us this morning? She's not. Legal, he is the Deputy Legislative Counsel in the Legal Division and started serving in the legislature recently in August 2024. Mr. DeLapp is originally from Salt Lake City. He received a bachelor's degree from Southern Utah University and graduated last year from the University of Utah School of Law. And this is his first committee assignment. Next, I have our committee policy analyst and our legal counsel, and I will allow them to introduce themselves. First, we have Cesar Melagarajo, and so I will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Melgarejo. I'm a Chief Principal Policy Analyst with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau, so it's permanent nonpartisan staff. This is my 4th session working with the LCB. However, this is my first session with this committee and my first session in the Assembly, serving the past 3 sessions in the Senate Conference on Labor. I'm a University of Nevada graduate, an Army veteran, and I just look forward to working with all of you and working on this new topic in this new committee.
Thank you. Ms. O'Krent?
Hi, my name is Carly O'Krent. I'm with the Legal Division. I am also a member of the permanent nonpartisan staff. This is my 7th legislative session. I served on the Senate Judiciary Committee last session, so I'm excited to be back in Judiciary and experience it from this side of things. I went to the University of Pennsylvania for law school and got a doctoral degree and a certificate in business and public policy from Wharton. I also was a kindergarten teacher previously, so I have a background in education, and I've staffed the Education Committee, the Healthcare Committee, the Judiciary Committee, and a number of interim studies. I'm excited for the session.
Thank you for that. And I should have acknowledged beforehand, if you haven't already noticed, there's been a lot of changes in the building, not just structurally, but just a lot of changes, and all the way up to our, chief clerk, who started in Assembly Judiciary when I was here. She was staffed at this team. So happy to have everyone. Really feel like we really have an A-plus team. And so glad for everyone, committee staff and all the members that are here. We also, another group that we rarely see, but our audio, visual, and public hearing staff. They are now known as AVH. I'm sure I will mess up that name a few times as well. But again, they're the folks working behind the scenes to ensure that our meetings are broadcast to the public. So thank you for all of you that aren't in the room, but that are listening and watching us right now. And with that, again, many of the policies and procedures are also to support the work that our hardworking staff does. With that, we will move on now to committee policies. So the first order of business is the adoption of committee policies, which I believe are posted on the website right now. Members, I trust that you all had an opportunity to view them. Oh. And the policies they're fairly standard and similar to those that are approved in other committees. We try to keep things as consistent as possible. But again, they serve to complement the Assembly standing rules and joint standing rules that were adopted yesterday in the Assembly. And so just a few that I would like to point out for the committee policies is that, of course, we keep an atmosphere of courtesy, professionalism, and respect. Also, we will start promptly every morning at 8 a.m. Members, of course, we expect that you come in fully prepared, that bills have been read, questions prepared when possible, and so that we're able to give our full attention to the speakers and presenters in committee. Of course, making sure that everyone in the room has telephones and computers and everything, all the sounds turned off. To ensure the smooth transitions throughout the meetings, I ask that all members, if you have a question, that you request it electronically to me so that you can be recognized for a question. Just to make a few statements about questions in the Assembly and Judiciary Committee. First and foremost, we are not Congress. Which is really a good thing. We are not Congress. And so Congress works differently, right? Here in the legislature, we don't have an allotted time period. So there is no, I'm going to give you some of my time, buy back my time, get my time. You don't have an allotted period of time. And what we see often in Congress is that members volley back and forth questions to presenters, or they start debating, or other things that just are not acceptable here in our committee. And so what you'll see is that members will ask one question, allow the presenter to speak, and if a member wants to ask a follow-up, they will also request verbally for a follow-up to be recognized to ask that additional question. With questions, we start off with members asking one question at a time, as to not, again, have one member with a presenter for 15, 20 minutes just going back and forth with questions. Part of the reason for that is not just because, oh, let's give everyone a chance to ask a question, but it's also so that everyone in the room also really gets a full understanding and feeling where members are. If one member is asking all the questions and it seems that that member loves everything happening, that becomes the impression of what's happening on the dais. If one member is asking all the questions and it seems that one member does not like what's happening, then that becomes the impression, instead of understanding that, you know, individuals are in different places and different positions with whatever the bill or the issue is. And so again, with that, you'll see also there's no guarantee that anyone will have the opportunity, that every question or every person will be recognized and have the opportunity to ask a question. So again, members, I just ask that if you have a question, you just request it electronically. Also, members, we know how important it is to let individuals and stakeholders and other sponsors know our positions on a bill. Oftentimes, our positions change, and so that's fine too. So if it changes, please just let me know as chair, and also, of course, let the stakeholders and the sponsors know too if your position on a bill changes. Usually, folks aren't too upset if you change in favor of their bill. That one's usually pretty accepted, but of course, if you've changed and you've now not in favor of a measure, please let everyone know. Again, I just want to reiterate that Please, anyone making a presentation or for a hearing or a presentation, please make sure you get those materials in before 8 a.m. the day before. Staff will again notify you if there's any type of copyright infringement that they recognize. Again, this is also a place in law that is becoming ever so detailed and intricate session by session as we go on. Something else for everyone in the room is just to remind folks that when we get to the position of testifying for our support or our opposition on a bill, that we can testify in support, opposition, or neutral. And according to Assembly Bill 54, keep in mind that neutral means that you are not requesting any changes or amendments or anything like that. The same with, well, let me back up. I should phrase it this way. If you are in support of the bill, you are in support of the bill fully. It is not, I am in support of the bill if, or I am in support of the bill, but, because if that's the case, then you may want to testify in neutral or opposition. Neutral generally is where we see state agencies and other individuals or groups where there could be a conflict, and they will testify in neutral, just stating the facts of what the bill could or could not do. But again, if you're requesting a change, then that is not a full testimony in full support. Also, again, we talked about public comment or testimony, trying to keep it to 2 minutes. And lastly, lobbyists, the press, and members of the public are not to approach the dais. The only people allowed to approach the dais will be members, and members are not allowed to grant you access to the dais. So with that, I just want to, again, members, do you have any questions about the committee policies? Assemblyman Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to clear up, is your preferred method of electronic communication for requesting questions Teams or text, or how would you like us to request those?
It's the Teams chat that I sent you this morning that says good morning. Did you see that?
I did not see it, and I'm looking, oh, okay, there, to the very bottom.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, please bear with us. It's like we're all a little rusty up here right now. It takes a few days for us to get back into the swing of it. And again, with multiple electronics and messaging and all kinds of things that are going on up here. So, but we'll be back in the swing in a day or so. Any other questions, members? Okay, well, with that, then I will take a motion to adopt the policies for Assembly Committee on Judiciary. Motion. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a second from Assemblymember Gray. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. With that, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is let's see, we have a presentation from our committee policy analyst, Cesar Melgarajo, who will present the committee policy brief. So whenever you are ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Melgarejo, Committee Policy Analyst for the Assembly Committee on Judiciary. As nonpartisan staff, I can neither advocate for nor against any of the measures that comes before this committee, and I will be brief on this brief. The Assembly Committee on Judiciary brief provides a summary background of information, breakdown of the state's court structure, and definitions for terms commonly heard in this committee, among other information. The brief includes an overview of the work of the committee during the 82nd legislative session, and to some degree information on the types of bills that may come before this committee this session. Topics generally heard in this committee include adjudication of contested cases, business associations, cannabis, civil and criminal law and procedure, corrections, domestic relations, firearms, gaming, judicial branch, law enforcement, among other issues. On page 2, you can see a table of the total number of bills that came before this committee last session. This appears to be the average workload for this committee during each regular session. Last session, This committee considered 144 measures, 102 voted out, 85 signed into law, and 9 were vetoed. On page 2 and 3 of the committee brief includes summaries and links to reports, publications, and audits relating to the judiciary. Contact information for committee staff is located on page 6 of the committee brief. In conclusion, I am available to assist the committee and its members on any issues related to matters before the committee. In addition, the Research Division is available to provide information and assistance on a confidential basis to all individual members of the legislature on any topic. And Chair Miller, this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That really was brief, huh? Okay. Members, any questions? Okay, not seeing any questions, we will proceed. Again, members have been through, especially freshmen, have been through a number of presentations and training, and so everyone's fully prepared with what our committee is doing. They're not prepared for what's going to happen in committee, but they are prepared for what we do. Next up, we have a presentation, an overview of Nevada's Department of Corrections. And so with that, we have Director Zarenda back with us. Director, do you have, is there a presentation or anything? Okay. So, Director, I do have an idea of what you're going to present. Also, I did not have the names of your co-presenters, so please introduce them or have them introduce themselves so we know who we are with. And again, just want to remind everyone that we're asking you to keep your presentations to 15, 20 minutes max so that, again, members have time for questions. Okay?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Miller and members of the Assembly Judiciary. My name is James Zarenda, DZ, URENDA. I'm the Director for the Nevada Department of Correction. Here with me today, I have pretty much my two most important people in the department, my budgeting or finance director, Kitty DeSocio, and also my program director, Emily Testweed. They're not going to be presenting. I just have them here in case anybody has specific questions. Anyway, I'll go back to the last session, just a debrief of where we've come since then and where we're going. When you look at the last session, it was going back to January of 23. The department was just rebounding from COVID and the effects of the pandemic on staffing levels and also program levels, which were pretty much depleted. Staffing, we were reduced dramatically. Reentry programming pretty much was gone. Everything that we stand for the Department of Corrections pretty much was almost non-existent based upon where the COVID took us and what happened with the department. My first goals of the department were the staffing levels, trying to get safety and security brought up. You can't have good programs if you don't have good safety and security. When I was introduced back in January 23, February 23, we were at 34% statewide correction officer vacancies, and when you look at just Lovelock and Ely, we were at 48% correction officer vacancies at Lovelock and 52% at Ely. Just wanted to say where we've come today. When I revamped the system and tried to figure out where our backlog was and our hold was, it was really because we were so down with staffing and human resources and recruiting that was pretty much where our whole backlog was. When you have those that are looking for the field of corrections, they're usually shotgunning in all different fields, whether it's all different law enforcement fields, the police, the county, the state, the jails, the county jails. And whoever it really is, first come, first serve. Whoever gets them first will actually be the one that benefits from the hire. So we ended up contracting out with a national company that did everything for us, our recruiting, our marketing, our hiring, our processes. Just so you know where we've come today, if you talk about the southern part of Nevada, I'm going from as far as Pioche, Jean, Las Vegas, Indian Springs, and North Las Vegas. The last week of December, we were at 0% vacancy. We had not one correction officer vacancy. In fact, we still had about close to 5,000 correction officer applications. That's where we've come since then. The north, in Carson City, we're pretty close to, well, we're less than 10% officer vacancy. Even in Ely and Lovelock, where we still are kind of hindering on looking for more staff and trying to figure out how to do better recruiting, we still have dramatically increased the staffing there. Today, we have 14 correction officers that are going to Lovelock at the academy. I got 8 at Ely going to the academy currently. And when you start looking at that, that's when we could start progress. And that's when we could start really looking at our policies, procedures on how we can move ahead to do things better for the staff, the offenders, and how it eventually affects the public. When we're looking at the programs, like I said, were pretty much diminished, non-existent back in February of 23. We've dramatically started increasing the way we've done business. And as I mentioned in the last session, we're utilizing more volunteers. We're utilizing more of the community resources to help. We have what's called Vocational Village now, which was really a push from a group called Hope for Prisoners that actually it trains, certifies, and gets jobs for those in the fields of, most of it's all tech fields and carpentry, a lot of the trades. They do welding, they do plumbing, they do electrical, they do HVAC, they do masonry, and they get jobs. The companies are investing in them from the communities, so they are doing it, not the state. They're doing all the training so that they can actually get employment and employees when they leave the correctional facilities to go to the public, and sustainable jobs. When you talk about long distance and programming around the state, we're still lacking in areas like Lovelock, Ely, in some of the camps because of those areas where we can't get the actual staff to come in for that type of programming or volunteers. We've also been utilizing ex-offenders coming in to do programming. Big change in culture change for the department. And the way I looked at it is that when you have offenders that have been through what the other offenders have been through, have grown up, what the other offenders have grown up with, and if they get successful when they leave and they become successful citizens, they are the best. And when they come back to monitor, mentor, and train offenders going back out in the community, because they make the most impact. That is important. And what changed also, and the process was long, but was a bill called AB 35, which was the tablet bill, electronics bill in the first session. It allowed corrections to go to the allowing tablets for every offender. Changes in the FCC kind of hindered, Federal Communications, hindered our progress in implementing the tablets, all the waiting for the changes in the implementation. Change of the contract, the RFP also was a kind of a hindrance and block in getting this up and running. But to put it in perspective today, the company that was chosen, Viapath, took over communications January 5th of this year. Tablets are already, they're not implemented, but the process is already being put in place. The IT's already from the companies already at each facility, doing the wiring, getting all the stations all set up. And the implementation of the first facility we'll probably see on April 1st. Going in priority of those that need it the most, which to me it's Ely Correctional Center, which I'll go over the change of it, that really need the programming piece through the tablets to help those offenders. And then it'll keep going statewide till every facility has been implemented, and every single offender is going to be issued their own tablet. When you talk about this, all those programming, anyone that has ideas and colleges, universities that have better and proven evidence-based programming and education that wants to be on those tablets will have the opportunity to. Even when you talk about Pell Grants with the federal government, we'll be providing college courses, education, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees to offenders, because it's proven that education actually is our best resources for reducing recidivism, which means less victims in our community. When you start talking about the programming piece, in our budget this year, we've asked for numerous programming officers, program staff, to increase it so that we can actually bring massive programming back to the agency again. One of the big changes that we've done in the since the last session was changing the culture and the offender population from the Ely State Prison and the High Desert State Prison. What I found out at the Ely State Prison, which was really the catalyst, is that we had, with those vacancy numbers that we were talking about, over 50%, we had very little staff response when an emergency happened. We had 3 significant back-to-back emergencies that happened at Ely. Staff were already working over 16 hours, going to outside hospital trips at 18 and 20 hours. Should never happen. Also, when you talk about a facility in an area where it's the least amount of recruiting possibilities, when you have a highest level of offenders in a facility, it means you have the highest level needs of staff. So I took it to move all the offenders from Ely and move them into Indian Springs, move the lower level medium security offenders that really are the better, behaved population to Ely, which was able to reduce the staff by 66 officers and program people, security staff out of Ely to move them down to High Desert. Doing that helped with the vacancy rates up at Ely. That was dramatically important for us. We doubled the population at Ely, which today is 1,120, but it reduced the staff by 69. That's a big deal. And when you have a population that very, very rarely have an incident, then it doesn't strike me as much of a priority of trying to find how do we get emergency responses from either the Sheriff's Department, DPS, and so forth to help out with that facility. So it not only was a safety and security reasons for the change, but it was also a good for money, for being good public employees to be able to provide to the public a better for what they're getting for their costs. And when you look at that, the problem I have now is the programming piece. When you have the lower level mediums that are going to be getting out into the community sooner than the higher level, the programming piece is what we're dramatically trying to increase there as well, which the tablets will be a factor, but also looking at ways we can provide services from other towns and residents from that area as well to be able to help us and ex-offenders. When you're also talking about programming and, when we're looking at our communities to see what jobs are the most prevalent out there, it's important for me to team up with other agencies. We have a partnership that we've never really had with Dieter that does a lot of our training now and is providing, because they have some resources and grants that can help with training, not only training the staff, but the offenders. Big deal when you start teaming with them. We've also did great teamwork with Health and Human Services. One of our areas that we're still lacking with recruiting and hiring is medical and mental health. We do a lot of contracting for medical and mental health, which is very costly, a lot more expensive than when you hire. However, we have to meet the needs by doing this, by utilizing the contract staff, because we can't really get our own. We teamed up with Health and Human Services and just our new recruiting measures that we did this year. It's really helped. However, it's got a long way to go. So our biggest concern on my end now is trying to figure out how we can increase services without really costing too much money for the state taxpayers, but also to be able to provide more of community-based and services that are recognized in the community that we would be doing in the department and not separating. The other thing I also wanted to bring up was our infrastructure. The infrastructure, as we may have seen or have known if you've been following corrections, in September of 2022, we had a significant escape of a serious offender that was very violent. There was a bombing, did a bombing at one of the casinos in their garage, was able to escape. That should never happen in the type of infrastructure that facilities have. We've already increased the internal infrastructure of that facility by replacing doors and windows. We also already started construction on a highest security fence that goes around the facility. It's called a non-lethal fence that goes around. It's 4 miles of fencing that goes around the facility and is built 4 feet underground to start. The agency's fence that was there in 22 was built at ground level. That means all the water runoff from the mountains erodes all the ground underneath it. And if you could have the groundhogs and the squirrels get underneath it, I'll guarantee you the offenders can too. That will no longer happen. When you look at the years of the infrastructure problems in the kitchens, being a constant failure of the health department's evaluations for many years. We're going 8-10 years of failing. Very unacceptable. We finally started seeing support, whether it's from the ARPA funds, the governor's finance office, and legislature on contingency money, to see improvements in the kitchens and the remodeling of the kitchens. Big deal on my end, because it's one of those things that actually, when you look at disturbances around the country, disturbances usually happen over visiting issues, lockdown issues, or food. Very significant problems we could have if we don't address this, and we are finally addressing it in the state. The other thing that we still have issues with, contraband. And when I talk about contraband, talking even about drug issues inside the facilities. What was very important that we started since last session was MOUD, really working on drug addiction issues with the clients that we have in the facilities, with medicated assisted therapies, teaming with Health and Human Services, who actually provided staffing now to help us with this. When you look at the philosophy prior to 2023, the agency believed that the MOUD and medicated assisted therapy was not necessary in prison systems, because prison systems have long-term offenders. There should be no drugs or alcohol in the prisons, so the drug addictions themselves should be cleared up on their own. Furthest from the truth. When you have those that are addicted to drugs coming into the facilities, and when it's the least possibility of them to find drugs, they become more desperate. And without treatment, they become even more desperate. The only people that benefit from that type of mentality with reducing or eliminating any type of MAT or MOUD is the gangs. They benefit because they make more and more money off of how they can get drugs in, sell drugs, and making money on it. Providing MOUD and MAT will actually help reduce that need. It'll help why they're in prison. It'll help put some of these gang members out of work, because it's a very significant problem in our prison system. When you talk about how to stop drugs from going from areas to areas, another thing we teamed up with Health and Human Services with is the opioid funds. With the opioid funds, we were able to get support from Health and Human Services to purchase and trial body scanners. Body scanners have been placed at the High Desert State Prison, where we had the most issues with contraband and drugs. It'll be similar to the airport scanners. It'll let the staff know what type of drugs, weapons, or contraband, cell phones are actually hidden on the body or inside the body. Big deal when it comes to controlling drugs and contraband. We do have logs of that we are keeping of every time that we've come across and confiscated it through that machine. The other thing we got through Health and Human Services are mail scanners. The mail scanners are also being tested at the High Desert State Prison. While the company was training the staff on the mail scanners, we got 8 inches of legal mail that came in through the mail, and inside the legal mail, the scanners picked up a cell phone in the middle of the package, built cut out inside the middle of the legal mail, 6 inches down. That was not even starting the mail scanning system yet. The problem with the mail scanners across the country, which is different from ours will do there's 2 pieces to it. It does a density scanner, which would pick up on the cell phone, but it also does ionic scanning, which would pick up on paper to determine what is not the makeup of ink or paper. Why is that important? Is because you could actually probably go on YouTube or you can go on Amazon and purchase what's called K2 Spice. K2 and Spice is laced paper that looks nothing different than what you have in front of you. However, it's man-made chemicals on that paper that actually can get people high. It can actually kill, which you can overdose on it still. It's not illegal drugs, so it doesn't get picked up on regular scanners, but it also causes brain damage. And putting that to a stop is a big deal.
Director?
Yes.
So we're at about 20 minutes right now, so I just wanted to ask if you had any final topics you wanted to cover, because I know that members do have some questions.
Yep, that was really it. When you're, and the last thing that was on my list of things that I wanted to go over was also solitary confinement. It's a goal of mine to abolish solitary confinement in the state, and the only way to do solitary confinement abolishment is to do it safely, to have offenders that can actually get out longer out of their cells, to be able to do it safe. In my budget, I've asked for increases, which I've already got approved through the first level of capital improvement, increasing recreational enclosures and recreation yards throughout the state so that we can actually separate and have offenders out of their cells more frequently. The other part of solitary confinement is providing the mental health treatment to those offenders to make sure that we could find the root of the reasons of their behaviors and to correct it. Just to let everybody know, solitary confinement, the state of Nevada is the only state that has identified what solitary confinement is in law. No other state has that. In fact, if you ask any other state director around the country, they will actually tell you they don't have solitary confinement. There is no such thing. The NRS that was built under Senate Bill 307 last year identified what actually solitary confinement was. And it's my goal to abolish it, to make sure it's safer for the offenders and for staff, especially when those offenders get back out into the community, they're better off. That's all I have, and I'm open for questions. I thought since I was the only one on the agenda, I can go all day.
No. No. You missed that part when I said we're not Congress. We don't. But with that, Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch has a couple clarifying questions.
Thank you, Chair. I just, for the sake of those of us that are not in your world on a day-to-day basis, and especially our freshmen, could you just clarify some of those acronyms? You think you said MAT and MAD or MOD? Yeah.
So MAT is actually medicated assisted therapy, and MOUD is the treatment and programming that's around treatment of those with addictions. MOUD is actually a standard that the federal government put out for the programming of substance use disorder treatment.
Thank you for that. That's one of the challenges in every committee, because there's always acronyms we all use within that system that other folks just don't know. With that, our next question is from Assemblymember Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you again, Director. A few of us up here had a chance to visit one of your facilities down south, your female facility, and I got to say I was really, really impressed. Some of the programs you guys have going on down there, the HVAC training program was just phenomenal. I mean, state-of-the-art equipment. One that really hit home, though, and I think my compadre here to my left will agree, was just the dog training. That pays, I think, dividends. And when we met some of the inmates that are working with them, and they're there for a long stretch, and that really provides them a grounding. You know, I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just amazing that, you know, what was going on there. And I was just wondering if you had any intentions of expanding that program.
So James Renner for the record, thank you for that. First, since December, we've taken 26 dogs out of the Las Vegas shelter that were on the euthanasia list that are now being trained and kept and fostered by the offenders population at the Florence McClure. What we are increasing or starting is actually in Carson City at the Northern Nevada Correctional Center and Lovelock are two different trainings. It's not related to rescue, but it's it's all around veterans. We have currently we have dogs that are up in Lovelock that are being trained for those that come back with PTSD from the war or military, or those that have disablements for the military. We are training dogs to be able to turn on light switches or answer certain types of phones that can actually call 911, find veterans that have seizure disorders, a lot of the things geared around specific veterans. That's being done there. The Carson City, we already did, but we're going to be starting a massive runoff for Liberty Dogs, which is up in Reno. It's another organization for dogs for veterans, and they pretty much align the dog and the training around the offender and who it's going to. What's that? Veteran offender, you're right. So we ended up, we're going to be expanding that because in Reno, they're actually expanding the organization up there off of Meadows Parkway. So we are going to have a large impact in our facilities, at least in this area, for the veteran dogs, but not the rescue dogs. That's staying down in Las Vegas.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I want to touch on something that came up a little bit last session, just as far as commissary fees. So I think, we're all in agreement. Some families are really struggling right now. And I think a hidden cost that a lot of people don't think about is the cost of communication and commissary with their family members who are incarcerated. And so I know we did some work last session around feminine hygiene products and things like that, but what does the department see right now as the biggest budget barrier to bring down those costs? And then how are the proceeds from the commissary being reallocated within the agency budget?
Yeah, thank you for that question. First of all, like was mentioned last session, we eliminated all markup costs for any type of hygiene items across the state. Our biggest issues with the commissary funding with ours is 49 full-time employee positions are still being paid through the commissary funds. When you have to pay for 49 full-time employee positions, then you got to see where the money comes from. It's not under general fund money, which to me it should be. When you start paying those costs, we have to get the money from somewhere, which is really the big reasons for the markups in commissary and some communications that were happening. When we look at the tablets that come in, there are going to be some cost to like games and things that are not program related but could be used for activities. Those are going to also run up some revenue for the department that'll also cut some of the costs of commissary. Just we don't know what those costs are yet. But our big driver of our commissary is paying for 49 full-time employee positions.
Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see you and appreciate a lot of the changes that you've been able to tackle since you came back to Nevada, so appreciate that. I toured the Lovelock Prison, which is in my district, with Senator Hansen last September, and was impressed. Prison industries, making do with, to me, I'm getting so old, I remember when that prison was built, and I can't believe it's as old as it is now. But making do, I know maintenance has been an issue, and it sounds like you're on that. It looks like maybe some funds are being freed up because we had concern, particularly about the kitchen there, the oven. So maybe just a little update. If they're getting it, they got it. I think High Desert got theirs, but
So that, and then I'm sorry, Chair, just a second quick question, if we could get an update on the camps situation.
So James Renner for the record. First, I'll leave the budget question up to Deputy Director DeSocio about where we are with the kitchens. But when you talk about the camps, when you look at AB 236, I think it was, or 239 from the 19 session, which changed a lot of the sentencing structures of crimes. It actually, the way the impact it made in the Department of Correction is that it reduced the number of those that are minimum security eligible for camps. When I left the department back in 2019, we had 1,100 offenders in the camps that were trained for forest fires. Today, we have only 220. That is a significant concern for those in the areas that are possible for forest fires or fire areas. We just don't have that population anymore. So when you start reducing that population, there's not a need for certain camps that are out there. We're possibly going to be looking at either reallocating the Wells camp for something else or closing it completely this session. When you start, we already closed Humboldt. We have to, Ely Conservation Camp was already closed. When you start seeing them, they will start lingering out completely. So NDF has a job with trying to figure out how to make up for a lot of those forest firefighters, wildfire firefighters. Anyway, what happens is when you look at that bill and the reduction of that, it actually increased our medium security offenders. When you increase the medium offenders, that means eventually we're going to be full in our medium security capacity. I don't think we'll have any problems in these next couple of years, but down the road we will. We have what's called the JFA, who isn't our contractor anymore, but the last JFA report is James Austin's, his middle initials F, but James Austin's analysis of where our population is going to be. It shows on his report, which is available. The last report shows that Warm Springs Correctional Center will have to open eventually. I don't know when that could be. It'll be 2 years, 4 years, whatever it is with our population increase. But it also shows a new facility within the next 10 years is going to need to be built with the increase in our population projections. So that's what that kind of means. But for the budget questions on the kitchens, the socio can handle that.
Yeah, I'm Katie DeSocio, Deputy Director of Support Services, Corrections. So we were able to, in the last 2 fiscal years, leverage some ARPA funding to improve the kitchens in the high desert, southern desert, and NNCC. We just got approved for the NNCC ARPA funding. We also have in our budget 2 CIP components for culinary. One is for planning to replace, I think I used the word replace, the culinary facility at NNCC, Northern Nevada, and then to finish up, to get through some of the health fines and issues that we have, making corrective action in the fiscal 25. So we're going to be able to do that with the ARPA funds, and I think that's all we have in the budget right now.
Can I ask you to state and spell your name?
You bet. Please. It's Kitty DeSocio, DeSocio, and I apologize for that, ma'am.
It's probably one of the hardest things to remember for these next 120 days. Kitty, Kitty?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assembly Member Nadeem.
Thank you for the opportunity. So my question is regarding the solitary confinement. Why Nevada is the only state that still has it and the other states don't have it? Why we still have it?
So James Arenda for the record. So it's not that we're the only state that has it. Every state has it, just we're the only state that identifies what it is. They won't call it solitary confinement in any other state. I helped testify back in the United Nations back in 2008 and 2010 on the Mandela rules, which is the national solitary confinement language. Just no state has identified or says they have solitary confinement. They claim they have restrictive housing or segregation. To me, it's no different, but that's what they say they have. So that's why the confusion with other states claiming they don't have solitary confinement. They do. They just don't call it solitary confinement. We're the only state that identifies what that actually is, if that helps.
Thank you for that. We have another question from Assembly Member LaRue Hatch.
Thank you so much, Chair, for that second bite. So I really appreciated the kitchen remodel discussion because that's a big concern of mine. In interim, I heard from a lot of folks about very serious food concerns, including rotten food and a lot of really horrifying things that I won't say right before we eat breakfast. So I would just like to hear, while we're waiting for some of those remodels, what is being done to make sure that the food is healthy? And also I heard concerns about the food being very over-processed, not necessarily the most healthful. Is there any standards that you're looking at increasing to improve that?
So James Renner, for the record, the company we contract out with is a company called Aramark. Aramark actually is going to do a public presentation. I'm not sure if it's going to be through this agenda or if it's going to be through the Bureau of Prisons Commission, but they're going to do a presentation on where their food come from, the nutritional levels, the nutritional aspects of how it's evaluated and how it's matching the other, I think they do 36 other states' prison systems, how it's exactly the same food. The issues that come over in this state, there's issues that come by that are whether the food quantities, I think, is the biggest concern that they have. We put in measures to monitor the quantities, which will be brought up in the next BOPC, Bureau of Prisons Commission. But when we had opened up every facility to have what's called it's an offender committees that they're work committees. Every housing unit has a committee member that's represented from that housing unit to go over food concerns and that. Since we switched to the new food system from Aramark, there has not been any concerns about the food. It's more of the quantity. So it's not the quality, it's actually the quantity which we're addressing. And I think a lot of it is we weren't monitoring close enough. So when you have offenders serving offenders and you're only giving out 3/4 of a spoonful and you're supposed to give out one, that means more food left over for those that are serving, I think was our problem. So we're monitoring that closer with staff to make sure what Aramark says we're supposed to be giving is that we're actually giving. And like I said, there'll be a presentation on the road, down the road with that. But I think all the issues are resolved, and and the offenders actually can now select the meals. They do 90-day menus. The offenders, if they don't like something on the menu, they can actually ask to remove it. If they like stuff on the menu, they could have it multiple times. But they can select the actual menus now in 90-day schedules.
Thank you for that. Not seeing any additional questions from any members, we will go ahead and close this agenda item. Thank you so much for your presentation. I know we will see you back quite frequently in this room in the morning, so thank you for that. With that, I just want to, before we move on to public comment, make a few slight announcements. One being that I neglected to say this in our, when we were doing introductions, but we do have an actual staff that's assigned to us, our very own Zoom technician, who is America Young. So I forgot to recognize her, but America Young is the one assigned to this committee for our Zoom technology. And also that anytime that there is an exhibit that was submitted with potential copyright concerns, that it will be uploaded to Nellis under the committee view only. So it won't be for everyone, but for the committee view only, that you need to log into. And and those materials will be forwarded to your attaches. And so with that, because I'm jumping all over the agenda right now, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is public comment. So with that, again, we will take public comment, and public comment is should pertain to anything that was discussed or is under the purview of this committee. So we will first take any public comment here in Carson, then we will move down to Las Vegas. I do see there are some individuals there, so if you're wishing to make public comment, you will be recognized next. And then we will move to the telephones. Those who wish to make public comment on the phone number is 1-888-475-4499. When prompted, you will provide the meeting ID, which the meeting ID today is 834-7893-7496, and then you will press pound. So with that, we will go ahead and proceed with public comment. If there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to comment, please proceed.
Tanya Brown, TONJABROWN, Advocates for the Inmates and the Innocent. Thank you, Chair Miller. Welcome back, and to the new members, hello. I'm going to give you a brief little detail who I am and what I'm about. My brother was wrongfully convicted, spent 21 years in prison for a crime he did not commit just prior to his death while incarcerated. Newly discovered evidence was found hiding in the DA's file. And so over the years, my organization have tried working on getting a bill established to establish factual innocence posthumous petition to allow families such as ours to be able to continue to exonerate their loved ones. Justice should not stop at one's death. And I have, during the interim the Joint Interim Standing Committee on the Judiciary, some of the members here appeared on that. We submitted a recommendation, and I have provided it here today, to establish provisions relating to the filing of a petition for a hearing to establish the factual innocence of a deceased person who has passed away prior to the filing of their motions for new trial based on newly discovered evidence after death, and to allow the family of the deceased to exonerate their loved ones posthumously. There is no other remedy for families such as myself to allow to exonerate their loved ones. People don't realize that there is a stigma attached to families such as myself and others like us. And justice should be served. We want our loved ones cleared. And I can tell you, with the passing of the records request over the years, newly discovered evidence is coming up. And even those, for those who are actually still incarcerated, are having new hope. But it's the family members who can now put in a public records request with law enforcement and find newly discovered evidence, like what recently happened in our case, 36 years after my brother was convicted for a crime he did not commit. And he passed away in 2009. 2011, I found the real perpetrator of the crime. And without this law, I cannot exonerate him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to make public comment? Is there anyone in Las Vegas that would like to make public comment? Okay, not seeing anyone approach. Broadcasting, will you please open the phone lines for anyone wishing to make public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
And again, I ask that those on the phone, please make sure you state your name and spell it for the record. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 004, please press *6 to unmute. You may begin.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Sandra Valentino.
Valentino. And I have a loved one incarcerated in the Nevada Department of Corrections, Northern Nevada Correctional Center. Last summer was one of the worst we've ever experienced. Each heat wave was worse than the next. I remember getting letters and phone calls from my loved one describing how unbearable the heat was and how the walls felt like they were radiating heat, how the air was thick and unmoving. He told me about people passing out, struggling to breathe, correctional officers handing out ice that melted within minutes. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak today because this is an issue that can't wait. Our prisons are not equipped to handle the rising temperatures caused by extreme weather and failing infrastructure. Many units have little to no cooling, leaving people inside to suffer through life-threatening conditions. We are talking about dehydration, heat exhaustion, and even heat stroke, conditions that put both incarcerated people and the staff at risk. We have a responsibility to make sure no one is subjected to inhumane and unsafe conditions, no matter their circumstances. Ignoring this problem isn't just cruel, it opens the state up to serious legal and ethical consequences. I urge you to take action now before temperatures are rising and people are suffering. Fund critical upgrades to install proper air conditioning and ventilation in facilities that desperately need it. We can't afford not to. Set and enforce temperature limits so we don't have to wait for tragedy before stepping in. Plan for the future by ensuring our prisons are prepared for next extreme heat in the years ahead. This isn't just about policy, it's about basic human dignity. We can't turn a blind eye to what's happening inside these walls. I ask you to step up and make the changes needed to keep people safe. Thank you for your time and making this a priority.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Hello, my name is Crystal Mooneyhan, ChrystalMooneyhan, and I would like to speak in regards to the facility conditions across all NDOC locations, and specifically conditions at Gene Conservation Camp, JCC, where I was housed during my incarceration. JCC recently failed their health inspection due to sanitary conditions. The women located at this camp keep the kitchen very clean. However, the reasons for failure is the appliances and dilapidated conditions themselves. The hot water in the dishwasher is supposed to heat up to 180 degrees, but only gets to 60. JCC does not have a running freezer and hasn't for over a year and a half. The sinks leak, which lead to mold growth. The doors do not properly seal, leaving room for insects such as cockroaches, ants, stink bugs, spiders, and scorpions to get into the culinary, leaving the prep areas dirty and unsanitary. The women's choices are either to risk getting ill or spend an obscene amount of money on canteen food. I wish I could say this is the only at the women's facilities, but these issues are standard across the state. Southern Desert hasn't consistently had hot water for years. HDSP swamp coolers don't work and maintenance spends all summer running in circles to fix them. NNCC had wastewater feeding into the kitchen. The entire state is a mess. Facilities leave people living in inhumane, dangerous conditions. If we as a state are going to put people in prison, we have to ensure that they are safe and sanitary. Nevada is not doing that. I hope you look into it and help us find ways to make sure that people are protected during their incarceration. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. And I would just like to remind everyone that you're also more than welcome to submit your testimonies in writing as well. With that, we will take the next caller, please.
Good morning. My name is Ashley, Ashley, Shed, Shead, and I'm here to remind you that solitary confinement, no matter what you call it, is still solitary confinement. It's still suffering. It's still inhumane. 1,634 days. That's how long someone I care about has been locked away in the hole, not because of his behavior, but for his protection. After repeated warnings that he was in danger, being kept in administrative segregation for 2 years, then sent back to his old unit with a red tag status, NDOC ignored it all, and when the moment came for what should have been a simple escorted visit, they left those who were a threat on the tier for him to be attacked. They created the perfect storm for his assault, and after their failure could have cost his life, their solution was to bury him in a cell alone for over 4 years. 1,634 days, waking up every day to the same 6 by 8 foot box, a box where they sleep, eat, bird bath, and use the bathroom all within arm's reach, a cage where human contact is a privilege and not a right. Handcuffed and shackled just to take a shower, just to breathe fresh air, basic human needs are reduced to privileges dangled in front of them like rewards. Daily phone calls, a luxury. Time outside, a gamble. Maybe today, maybe next week, maybe not at all because there isn't enough staff. And if they do go outside, they could be left there for hours, treated like they don't exist. This isn't about discipline. This is about destruction. Solitary confinement doesn't rehabilitate. It breaks people. It strips them of their humanity, their sanity, their hope. The person I know and love is not the same after years in a box. And here's a fact that you should concern every single one of you. 97% of incarcerated individuals will one day be released. When they do, after surviving years of isolation, they are not coming back into society healed. They are coming back broken, and that's on us. If you think this is justified, I invite you, no, I challenge you to visit a prison and step in a solitary confinement cell, sit there, close your eyes, and imagine 1,635 days and tell me that's humane. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Anne Marie Grant, ANNEMARIE, GRANT, with Advocates for the Inmates and the Innocent. There are many factors that lead to innocent people being convicted of crimes they didn't commit, including mistaken eyewitness testimony, misleading forensics, prosecutorial misconduct, and even false confessions. Once convicted, however, it is immensely difficult to prove one's innocence, often due to procedural issues. Justice should not end at one's death. I recently located newly discovered evidence in a 1989 wrongful conviction of Nolan Klein. Specifically, I found a Salmon Creek, Washington, 1988 article regarding a bank robbery in Washington State, a clipping that the detective Sherman Box found in Nolan Klein's car. He was a seasoned detective, and he and other detectives believed Nolan Klein was the robber. Box did not know that the robber had actually been caught, thus why they withheld this newspaper clipping that was just found at the end of 2024 from Mr. Klein and his defense attorney. It would have supported the case of mistaken identity, and they could not have the jury saying that. Well, the jury should have seen that. And again, justice should not end at one's death. These families carry a stigma with them, and it's not right. There needs to be a mechanism to correct this wrong, and that is why I'm asking that you please support our amendment for a factual innocence posthumous exoneration during this session. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Denise Bolaños, Bolanos, and I'm the Associate Director at Return Strong. We just heard Director Zarenda speak about progress, hiring more staff, expanding programming with the goals of reducing recidivism, among others. And while those efforts may be real and significant, they do not erase the daily reality of excessive force, violence, and fear inside Nevada's prisons. On January 29th, a CERT team stormed multiple units at Southern Desert Correctional Center between 10:30 p.m. and 3 a.m. in a mass night raid. They kicked in doors, brandished guns, chemical agents, and tasers, and physically dragged people by their feet from their bunks while they were sleeping. They screamed, threatened, and created chaos. This was not about stopping contraband. This was an orchestrated act of terror. Even cell extractions for violent individuals follow more restraint and protocol than what happened that night. This was different, a targeted show of force meant to break people down. NDOC claims to follow administrative regulations that prohibit this kind of brutality, but inside those walls there is no accountability. There were no body cams recording the raid as it happened as required. They were only used after the fact to take still pictures. We believe this wasn't even reported. This is the same violent culture that led to Christian Walker's death and the murder of Patrick O'Dell by corrections officers in 2023. This isn't an isolated incident, and the violence is only escalating. We have surveys detailing the excessive use of force and the trauma it causes, not just for incarcerated people, but for good COs that are trapped in this system. Yes, NDOC may be working to improve staffing and programming, but that does not excuse or address the unchecked violence happening behind those walls. We urgently need an oversight hearing into the abuse happening inside Nevada's prisons. Something is dreadfully wrong, and the people inside are not disposable. The system must be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 815. Please press *6 to unmute your phone. You may begin.
Good morning. My name is Morgan Darcy. That's MorganDarcy. I'm calling on behalf of Return Strong. I'm just making a statement regarding the conditions of the Nevada Department of Corrections. My loved one has been transferred out of the state of Nevada up into Idaho State. And in the time that he has left Nevada, he has since been able to have medical needs met. His meals have been improved. He has been outside more than he has ever been out and while being incarcerated down in the NDOC. He has stated that there is less conflict and tension between the COs up in Idaho than when it was down here. There is a lot more communication and open willingness with the Idaho Department of Corrections versus the NDOC. What my only concern, my biggest concern is if Idaho is able to maintain that type of facility, then why can't the NDOC? My biggest concern too is that you have removed what you consider to be the worst of the worst and out of state, and here they are flourishing and doing much better. I'm wondering, why is it okay that they can do that up there in Idaho and you can't maintain that down here in Nevada? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Caller with the last three numbers, 477. Please press *6 to unmute your phone. You may begin.
Good morning. My name is Lori Beecher Valenzuela, LAURIE-BEECHER-Valenzuela. I'm an activist with Return Strong. I have an incarcerated woman who was wrongly convicted and want to bring attention to the issues we experience while trying to visit our loved ones. Visitation not only impacts the people, and I mean people that are incarcerated, it also deeply affects their loved ones who must navigate a complex and often frustrating system to maintain connections with those they care about. Standardizing the policies will eliminate the inconsistencies that prevail across all facilities. SB 105 and the proposed revisions to the administrative regulations were introduced in February 2023. Here it is, 2 years later, the legislative process still has not been accomplished. The families and the NDO staff remain in a constant state of limbo, unsure of what the expectations are for each facility upon every visit. The most pressing issues are the application process, the visitation schedules, and even the dress code. The application process is vague and inconsistent. For many, it can take months, sometimes even longer, to gain approval. This delay often hinges on the complexities of an individual's background or, believe it or not, even the spelling of their names. This is simply unacceptable. The visitation schedules are frequently changed with little to no notice.
Imagine planning a trip, sometimes from across the states or even from another country, only to find out that your visit has been canceled at the last minute. This lack of communication creates unnecessary stress and heartbreak for families who are trying to maintain vital connections. Currently, there are no all-day visits even offered at High Desert for those coming to visit from out of state. The dress code policy seems to fluctuate between facilities and visitation days. What might be acceptable one day can suddenly become an issue the next, and it appears the decision rests solely on the officer overseeing the visitation that day. This inconsistency creates confusion and frustration not only to the visitors but also to the officers who are trying to force policies that are unclear and ever-changing. It's important that I acknowledge the efforts of the dedicated visitation officers across the state. Their positivity, kindness, and commitment to doing a good job amid these inconsistent policies deserve our recognition. They, too, are caught in the middle of a system that often fails to support them. It's imperative that we create an environment where both officers and families can cooperate with a clear understanding of the rules and expectations. In closing, I urge the Nevada Department of Corrections to take swift action to standardize visitation policies, complete the SB 105 process, approve the new regulations, and provide clearer communication regarding schedules and dress codes. Time is of the essence, and achieving these goals must be our top priority. And with that, I'd like to remind every person that's in on this call that these are people, real people that we've incarcerated. They're my sons, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our cousins. They're living human beings who are deserving of the same dignity and respect that we offer any other citizen, any other person. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for that. And ma'am, I'd like to thank you for recognizing the well-doing of our officers. Often it's hard for us to separate the actual workers from the institution or the policies or the infrastructure itself. So thank you. We know we have a lot of hardworking, well-intended officers in our system as well. And we don't always hear that in this room. So just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you. Next caller.
My name is Savannah Pfeiffer, SAVANNAH, Tased 6 times and a can of bear spray later, Cert decided he'd had enough and that they would enter the cell 6 deep and cuff my husband. With the smell of feces engulfing the unit, the source, 2 individuals on the top tier. The prison's answer was to move them to cells on the bottom tier. Problem was one of these selected cells held my husband. Would you willingly move into a cell that hadn't been properly decontaminated, where feces were visible on the inside of the doorframe? I know I wouldn't. However, excessive force was used to move my husband into a cell that he had no business being put in. The latch unlocked, the flap opened, and a whole can of spray was sprayed into his cell with the door shut. The flap was opened again, but this time to tase him. Not once, twice, or even 3 times, but 6 times, until he fell to his knees in the puddle of water on the ground that collected from the fire sprinkler above. Can any of you say this was justified, to use this level of force and violence against an individual just to move him to another cell, when the solution should have been to clean it? Prison or not, offender or not, no one deserves to be treated like that. If this treatment had occurred to a dog in an animal shelter, charges would have been laid against those working there. So why is it okay for us to treat human beings this way? These offenders are somebody. One day could even be someone you know. Would it sit right with you knowing that your son, brother, or even grandmother get exposed to that level of excessive force at the hands of those employed to keep them safe and protected? Our people are dying. They are being executed at the hands of those employed to keep them safe and protected. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Everlund. It's EFVERLUND, and I am here to speak about the lack of reentry care for incarcerated individuals. It's easy to say they will be job trained or they can work upon so that they can work upon release, but the reality is far from that promise. I am a mother of a recently released individual, And what I have witnessed during my son's re-entry into society is nothing short of heartbreaking. My son spent 4 years behind bars, but this wasn't his first time. Each time he went in, he came out worse. Why? Because despite NDOC's mission statement promising rehabilitation, there was no real effort to help him change. No education, no training, no programs, just lockdowns and isolation. And in that emptiness, anger grew. That anger turned into violence. The first time he was sentenced, I thought this will be the moment they will help him turn his life around. The second time, I still had hope. The third time, I thought surely they will help him now. But each time the system failed him, his charges escalated. This time, his last time, hopefully, I took a different approach. Instead of trusting a system that had no interest in his success, I educated myself. I bought self-help books and workbooks, and we worked through them together. With 15-minute phone calls a few times a month, it wasn't much, but it was something. Before his release, I sought advice from a man who had served 20 years in NDOC. He told me what to expect and how to approach my son and how to support him, but nothing prepared me for reality. The day he was released, he walked out in prison blues carrying a box. 4 years of his life reduced to what he could carry. He was dropped off in one of the worst neighborhoods in Las Vegas, surrounded by crime, addiction, and poverty. This was his introduction back into the world. Since then, I've watched him struggle in ways most people never think about. Simple things, being in a restaurant, walking through a store, sitting at a family baseball game, fill him with anxiety. He told me, "Mom, it's hard enough just to remember how to eat using a fork and knife and a plate, let alone cook for myself." He shuts down, overwhelmed by tasks we take for granted. So I have to ask, how is this rehabilitation? How did NDOC prepare him or anyone for reentry? How many others are released with nothing, no support, only to end up right back inside? Why are Nevada prisons overcrowded? Because the system isn't designed to rehabilitate. It's designed to recycle, and until we demand real change, this cycle will never end. As others have said before me, I urge every lawmaker to visit a prison and see firsthand.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, if you have more that you would like to submit to the committee, we welcome that. Thank you so much. Next caller.
Good morning. My name is Amelia Castillo, Castillo, and I'm here to bring to your attention the significant inadequacies in medical care within the Nevada Department of Corrections. On January 14th, my loved one informed me that a man in their unit was experiencing a medical emergency, and despite notifying the correctional officer, who did immediately radio for medical attention at 10 a.m., there was still no response by 2:30. My husband was concerned for this man, and knowing of the advocacy group Return Strong, asked me if I could reach out and get him some help. I immediately emailed Return Strong and the Family Advocate at NDOC requesting assistance for this man. Unfortunately, within 45 minutes of Return Strong's intervention, a nurse arrived to assess him, and he spent a week in the infirmary. This incident raises concerns about what happens to those without external advocacy. During the Board of Prison Commissioners meeting on December 19, 2024, the medical care deficiencies within NDOC were discussed. The medical director, Dr. Kenneth Williams, conveyed an optimistic message. However, there has been no improvement at High Desert State Prison. Medical requests go unanswered. The provision of prescribed medications is inconsistent, and our loved ones are being ignored. Excuses like, your prescription ran out after only 3 days of a 30-day supply. And I pulled your chart, followed by months with no changes, are unacceptable. Additionally, placing individuals on the sick call list resulting in no follow-up for months is concerning. Conditions requiring timely treatment such as hypertension, diabetes, chronic pain are all neglected. In cases of broken bones, x-rays are not performed until after the fracture has already improperly healed. This leaves our loved ones with limited options for corrective treatment. The medical system within inside NDOC is critically flawed and requires immediate attention. our loved ones in the custody and care of the state of Nevada, which you must ensure their medical needs are adequately met. The state and NDOC must take urgent action to improve their standard of care. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 299. You are unmuted and may begin.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Williams, NicoleWilliams. I'm a board member and activist with Return Strong, and I'm here today because critical legislation passed in 2023 for Nevada Department of Corrections is still not being implemented as intended. SB 307, Solitary Confinement Reform. While we are sure NDOC claims compliance, people are still spending months in isolation without cheer time or yard. Simply renaming solitary to lockdowns does not mean the spirit of the law. We need a hearing into conditions inside Nevada's prison. AB 121, keep on-person medications. For 2 years, NDOC medical staff told us that only critical life-sustaining medications were being refilled. We now know that was false. People are missing their refills not because of policy, but because of NDOC's failure to act. The consequences: stroke, advanced cancers, diabetic comas, avoidable medical crisis. This is a life and death. In addition, there was never a good faith effort to educate incarcerated people on HIPAA and the difference between HIPAA and their emergency contact, leaving families grieving with no legal right to information. SB 351, visitation reform. Families without prior felonies should have had restored visitation access since January 1st, 2024. Yet, the regulations are still not approved, and old policies are being applied inconsistently. One person gets a visit, another one is denied. No explanation, no accountability. Where is the ombudsman? The contract wasn't awarded until October 2nd, 2024, despite the bill taking effect in January. As far as we can tell, no one is doing the work, yet the state is paying Sabbath Consulting. Where are they? Yes, the tablets are coming, and there have been painstakingly slow progress and problems with the implementation of ViaPath. The tablets have still not appeared, and details on them are still not forthcoming. NDOC has continuously stated that the tablets are going to be the miracle cure to rehabilitation, to family communication, to boredom and behavioral issues, to violence. They might help, and they are needed, but overall, NDOC needs a complete cultural overhaul. NDOC is failing to implement these laws as intended, and the consequences are real harm to real people. We are calling for immediate legislative oversight hearings into these failures. The people inside don't have time to wait. We need action now. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller.
Callers, if you have recently joined and would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
My name is Nancy Farrey, Farrey. My son is incarcerated at NNCC. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. To be honest with you, food in prison is something I had never thought about. I'm ashamed to say I didn't care. I was one of those lock 'em up, let 'em eat whatever. But then my son went to prison. Among the many issues we struggled with was this basic necessity of life, food. It's food. I couldn't believe it. It's the key to good health. It's the key to chronic bad health, too, which comes with a very expensive price tag. We soon realized for the incarcerated, food was just going to be part of their punishment. Maintaining good health, not even a thought. Being hungry was too often the norm. Over and over, I've heard about food amounts that might fill a kindergartner's stomach, but never a grown man's. 1 slice of bologna between 2 slices of bread, 2 wilted pieces of lettuce, maple syrup packets with no pancake or egg, no fresh fruit, a tiny juice box, think 4 ounces, consumed in 2 gulps. My son was just transferred to another facility, and he told me yesterday he had a banana, and the day before that, an orange. He was so happy about that. But that makes me so damn sad. Fresh fruit. Imagine that. The science is out there regarding diet and physical health, diet and mental health, and diet and behavior. And there are amazing projects going on in other states. Nevada needs to look into these programs. I urge you as lawmakers, dig deep, please. Feed our loved ones. Not steak, not lobster, hold the cherries jubilee, but nutritional food in adequate amounts. That is all we're asking for. Food that promotes health. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Broadcasting, do we have anyone else on the line?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no other callers to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. So with that, I will go ahead and close public comment. That was our last agenda item for today. Thank you, members, for our first successful meeting. Thank you for everyone participating and here with us today. Congratulations to our freshman members who just completed their first Judiciary Committee. Only like 115 more to go or so. And with that, I will conclude this meeting, and I will see you all back at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. This meeting is adjourned.